Hello! Yuri Boyka, the legendary champion of the prison MMA fights, decides to return to the ring. The leg injury still affects him, but Boyka is eager to win the international title. After winning the fight in the Black Hills prison, the fighter enters the international competition. However, it turns out that the tournament is rigged and the winner is determined in advance. Nevertheless, Boyka is ready to go all the way to prove that he is the undisputed champion. The action takes place in the Black Hills high-security prison in Russia. Bloody underground MMA championships are held here between the prisoners. The illegal fights are managed by Gaga, a criminal authority who bets on proven champions and gets a handsome profit. Yet another fight is won by Gaga's best fighter, Vladimir, whose inhuman strength the thug discusses with the prison warden, at the same time giving money to an assistant to fetch him lunch. The clumsy bandit drops the cash, and the trio is called out by a messy, limping inmate mopping the floors. Gaga mercifully offers him to keep the money, but receives a scornful refusal in return. The cleaner turns out to be the legendary fighter, Yuri Boyka, who is still not recovered from the severe knee injury he suffered in his last fight. He is turned into a quiet hermit who will spend at least another 15 long years in prison. His latest petition for clemency has once again been rejected. In his cell, Boyka trains his weakened leg, using cleaning equipment and motivating himself with memories of his former glory. The forgotten champion is visited by Gaga, for whom Boyka once made a lot of money. The man expresses his respect for the fighter and offers help and better living conditions, a new cell, and a job in the prison library. However, the former champion refuses such privileges and asks for the opportunity to compete in championships again. But Gaga believes that Boyka is in no shape to face even against the current champion Sukov, let alone international tournaments, so he must refuse. Another bout in the Black Hills. Vladimir Sukov gives his opponent a good beating. Meanwhile, his fighting technique is closely studied by the silent hermit, who continues to train his injured leg in the cell. He is obsessed with returning to the ring in the very near future at the next championship and decisively shaves off his grown hair. The day of the competition has arrived. This time, the winner not only gets the title of champion of the Black Hills high security prison, but also gets to fight for his freedom in the first international tournament. Boyka is not going to miss this chance, so he enters the ring and challenges the ultimate winner, Vladimir Sukov, by pouring water on him from a bucket. The guards try to take him away, but the boss Gaga, who thinks Boyka won't make it out of the ring alive, makes a different decision. Fight. Contrary to the boss's expectations, Boyka turns out to be in great shape, and the undisputed pigtailed champion is knocked out of the ring unconscious in less than a minute, with the audience behind the bars praising the prison's new champion. Boyka travels to Georgia. At the border, he is handed over to an escort and taken to the high-security Gorgon prison. Following his fighters to a luxury hotel in Georgia are their patrons, international criminal bosses, including Gaga, who still does not have high hopes for his challenger. The warden of the Georgian prison, Warden Kuss, lines up the inmates who have arrived for the international tournament. All the contestants behave submissively, except for the American Turbo, an arrogant upstart who is confident that he will win and go straight home from the Gorgon maximum security prison. Meanwhile, at the hotel, the respected and influential head of the Georgian crime syndicate, Mr. Rizzo, welcomes the arrivals to a fancy dinner. The next day, the prison warden explains to the fighters that they will have an hour each day to practice, though before that, there will be a mandatory warm-up, and the shackled criminals are taken to a mountain quarry for correctional work. The arrogant Turbo keeps his act even there, protesting against being forced to swing the sledgehammer, while Raul, a Colombian, for some reason, rests on a chase lounge. And when he catches Boyka's disgruntled look, he pounces on the man. The guards stop him immediately. Later, the opponents meet at the training session before their first fight, where Turbo continues provoking Boyka, but receives no response from the cold-blooded man. While the newly arrived fighters train hard, the local Colombian champion Raul doesn't bother. He receives a metal box with doping from his boss, which he injects later, and easily scatters his opponents to the corners of the ring during sparring. The qualifying round of the Survival Championship begins. In the first of 4 upcoming matches, the tough Brazilian plunges the Greek to a pulp. Then Turbo knocks the Croatian out of the championship. Boyka comes out next against the Frenchman. Gaga watches him skeptically, expecting to lose his first fight. The bout is evenly matched for a long time and tension rises. Though soon, blood is smeared all over the ring from Boyka's merciless punches. However, the Frenchman continues to rise up and goes on the attack with renewed vigor. Boyka's advantage soon becomes clear though, and he finally crushes his exhausted opponent with a powerful kick to the chest.
Winner! And the winner is Boyka!
Yet Boyka leaves the ring limping on one leg. The last to enter the fray is the main championship favorite, Raw, nicknamed Dollar, which means pain, and a swift fighter from North Korea. Raw makes a real spectacle of the fight, brutally torturing his opponent for the audience's amusement until the Asian, bleeding profoundly, finally loses consciousness. At the end of the first round, Warden Kuss approaches the defeated fighters.
Afraid this is the end of the line for all of you. Pity about your freedom.
Prisoners are taken out to be handed over to the escorts, but in reality, the criminals who lose are executed. For the survivors, the contest continues, as well as the work at the quarry, where Turbo bullies Boyka again. Noticing his weakness during the fight, the American hits him in the injured knee and provokes him by talking non-stop, finally pissing off Boyka, who strikes him in the jaw. Eager for a fight, he happily pounces back at him with punches. Both are punished for initiating a fight and sent to the pit, a cold, stinking hole where they cannot breathe properly. Even there, through the bars of the metal door, the restless Turbo continues to harass Boyka with insults.
Hear that? Maybe your ass shouldn't be here.
After a night in the pit, the bosses come to visit their fighters and learn that they, along with the other prisoners, are being taken to swing pickaxes at correctional works, which was not part of their agreement. Upon learning this, the enraged Gaga and Farnati burst into the warden's office, where Warden Kuss meets them with a steely, indifferent look and points the bandits to Mr. Rizzo, who is standing behind their backs. Rizzo explains to the naive couple that the tournament is rigged. The other fighters work their asses off at the quarry because they are bound to lose. Rizzo bet all his money on the Colombian favorite, Raw. Pouring whiskey in glasses, he advises the bandits to get more money and do the same. The fighters continue to be tortured at the quarry, bound by the same chain. Boyka and Turbo start fighting again. However, after a night in the pit, the fervor of both has subsided, and instead of wasting their energy fighting, they work together to avoid exhausting their bodies, while the big Colombian man injects himself with another dose of doping. Their coordinated efforts help Turbo and Boyka finally reconcile, dragging heavy stones. The partners discuss what their bosses already know. The tournament is rigged, and no one but the Colombian is destined to emerge victorious. In addition, the Russian realizes that here they are forced to fight, not only for a victory in the ring, but also for their lives outside the walls of Gorgon. So even after exhausting work, Boyka goes to train, and the chatty Turbo follows him. Gaga and Farnati, meanwhile, gather up all their money to bet on the Colombian. Boyka and Turbo are closely watched by the warden, and in order to assure that Mr. Rizzo's winnings do not get thwarted, they are both sent to work without lunch. Nonetheless, the indomitable partners are not willing to give up.
We can say this is work, we can say this is training.
And keeping count together, Turbo and Boyka not only swing the pick, but do push-ups, squats, and throw rocks over themselves in front of bewildered guards and prisoners. The strain takes its toll on the Russian's old injury, and his knee makes itself felt again. Turbo, who notices this, plucks and gives him some mountain flowers. If you squeeze oil from them and smear it on the leg, it should relieve the pain. The day of the tournament semifinals. In the first fight, Boyka goes up against the Brazilian, Gaga, who has already bet on the Colombian. Doesn't show any signs and supports his fighter with his trademark gesture. Boyka is furiously pounding on his opponent, but the pain in his leg overcomes him. Colombian Raw immediately notices the weakness of the Russian, who advances to the finals by locking the Brazilian in a vicious choke. After the fight, the previously restrained Mr. Rizzo becomes worried. Assuming Turbo will be as good a fighter as Boyka, he orders the warden to neutralize the American before his next fight. Warden Kuss passes the orders on to the guards, and they brutally beat the prisoner. In his injured state, he is found in his cell by Boyka, to whom Turbo tells him that he will enter the ring no matter what. Boyka continues to train hard when the Colombian sneaks up on him. Raw tells him that he has heard about the Russian fighter's past, the former king of prison fights, and his defeat a long time ago.
He's a champion of the toilets.
Finally, the Colombian hits that Boyka's American friend doesn't have long to live. After finishing his training, Boyka goes to visit Turbo, but the guy is not in his cell. The Russian finds his exhausted friend at the punching bag, from where both are sent back to perform hard labor. Boyka realizes that his comrade will not survive the fight and tries to convince him at the quarry to flee into the woods. Boyka offers to break the chains, but Turbo considers it a matter of honor to fight to the end, even if he loses. He is ready to go back to his prison. An old water carrier who hears them intervenes in the conversation.
The losing fighters all disappear. No one gets out alive.
Realizing his situation, Turbo agrees to Boyka's offer. And while the guard is away, they try to break the chains. But the sledgehammer fails and breaks, and the warden, who notices what is happening, raises the alarm. The partners have to engage in hand-to-hand combat, and Boyka easily dispatches the attackers, while the others try to beat his exhausted friend with clubs. Boyka manages to seize the keys and take the shackles off Turbo. With the help of the other prisoners, the American climbs the hill and escapes, while the instigator is knocked out with a hit of a stock to the head. Boyka comes to his senses already in his prison cell. Warden Cuss and Mr. Rizzo are leaning over him. The fighter demands to talk to Gaga, who is already here, and indifferently tells Boyka that he has placed a new bet on the Colombian, with whom his ward will fight in the finals. The day of the final battle, Dolar versus Boyka. The referee announces the start of the bout. The opponents start on equal footing. Neither man manages to make a successful takedown, and all surprise punches are met with a block. Then Boyka suddenly misses a punch to the jaw. A stream of blood, along with the mouthpiece, comes out of his mouth, and the taunting faces of Rizzo and his accomplices float before his eyes. With a furious yell and renewed vigor, Boyka lunges at his opponent, but gets trapped as he tries to knock the Colombian off his feet. Dolar grabs his leg and twists the injured knee, and while the man wriggles in unbearable pain, Gaga and Fernati rejoice in the anticipation of profits. Boyka manages to break free out of the grip, but fails to attack the Colombian. The latter pummels him with blow after blow, and when Boyka rises again, the champion knocks his tortured body out of the ring with a final strike. The Colombian raises his hands, celebrating victory, while the referee counts down to 10 to call the Russians' defeat. In front of Boyka's eyes is a prison mop. Memories swirl through his head, and among them his friend's advice: improvise, adapt, overcome. Gathering the last of his strength, the fighter bandages his knee and gets to his feet as the countdown reaches 8, stopping the referee. Boyka gets back into the ring. The audience, screaming in support of the Colombian, shuts up, and absolute silence reigns in the hall, broken only by the sound of Boyka's punches, one of which knocks the Colombian off his feet. Now, the audience erupts in support of the revenant fighter. And Mr. Rizzo and his accomplices are tensely watching what occurs in front of them. Once on his feet, Dolar falls again, but regains his strength and sets out to attack Boyka's weak spot a second time. Now though, he simply breaks his shin against the undisputed champion of prison fights' knee block. Gaga, having lost $5 million, threatens Mr. Rizzo with reprisals, and the dodgy Fernati gets right down to business and bursts into Warden Cuss's office, planning to staple him to the chair with bullets. Mr. Rizzo appears after him, and Fernati decides to deal with the criminal first. After that, the fat man himself gets shot in the back by Warden Cuss. The warden goes out to meet the winner. However, he informs him that under the terms of their agreement, only one participant of the tournament can be set free. And since Boyka himself freed the American, who they did not manage to find, he will have to return to the Black Hills and start cleaning toilets again. The Russian is brought to the border, where he is about to be shot. Warden Cuss takes the gun himself this time, and while stretching the moment of reprisal and excitement, he receives a bullet in the forehead, as well as all the guards following him. Turbo, meanwhile, emerges unexpectedly from the ambush and takes his friend to the car hidden nearby. Surviving Gaga, happily eating a burger, is waiting there for Boyka with a suitcase full of money and tells him that he actually bet everything on his undisputed fighter, who can now be free. As always, you'll find the name of the movie in the description of the video, and in the comments let us know who you bet on in this tournament. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next awesome retelling.